Human beings were never intended to go it alone. The verse from Ecclesiastes reminds us of this truth, and it's a part of this continuing series that Pastor Matt and I have been preaching on Celebrate Recovery. And today, for the first time, I'm going to be sharing with you some resources directly from the Celebrate Recovery information. So, who's been the person who stood beside you and helped you? And secondly, the second half of this question is, are you willing to be that kind of person for someone else? There's an old anonymous saying that goes like this. I went out to look for a friend, and they were nowhere to be found. I went out to be a friend, and friends were everywhere. The book of Proverbs says, in order to have friends, you have to be a friend. I want to share with you a story that came to me, came out of the South, down around Texas in that area. I don't know the exact date on this, but I know that there was a preacher named Dr. E.K. Bailey. And Dr. Bailey, when he was graduating from school, from Bible college, in his tradition, they didn't have a bishop that appointed people. You went to a church and you gave a trial sermon, and the church would decide, based upon that trial sermon, whether they were going to call you to be their preacher. When Dr. E.K. Bailey was in his last year of seminary, his last semester, he started doing trial preaching. And he trial preached 7 churches, 7 sermons. 7. And no one called him. And he vowed that that was such a deflating experience that he would never do it again. He didn't know if he'd be a preacher, but he wasn't going to do any more trial sermons. But guess what? An 8th church called him. And with great reluctance, he decided to go. Not far from the little church he was given a trial sermon in Dallas, Texas, there was another church called Good Street Baptist Church. And there was a pastor at that church named Dr. Caesar Clark. And he had heard about this young man, and he knew him. Do you know what he did? He left his pulpit on a Sunday morning, went down to this little church where he was giving his trial sermon, slipped in the side door so he wouldn't be seen by anybody, and sat down to listen to this young man give his trial sermon. When the sermon was over and the people were singing a song, a closing song, somebody noticed this guy, Dr. Caesar Clark, and said, "Oh, Dr. Clark, we didn't see you come in. He slipped in the side door. Dr. Clark, would you please bring greetings to our church?" Dr. Clark stepped to the front, and I want to read you what he said. Dr. Clark told the congregation, he says, "I'm here today. I cannot vote with you, but I can hope. And I hope that you will vote for this young man who just delivered his sermon. He's full of potential. He has suffered some disappointment, but I will stake my ministerial reputation on this young man, and he will be a blessing to you if you give him a chance." And they did. They voted and accepted him. And today, Dr. E.K. Bailey is known all over that region as one of the great leaders and teachers in preaching. I would say that Dr. Clark was a pretty good friend, wouldn't you? Anybody ever done something like that for you? Anybody ever stood up for you or stood beside you? It's the greatest, most wonderful thing we can do for another person is to stand beside them, encourage them, and say, "I believe in you." If you look in your bulletin today, you'll see that the numbers are growing. There's at least 30 people who have said, "We want to be a part of Celebrate Recovery." We need about 20 or 30 more people to sign up and come to our session in 2 weeks on Tuesday night so that we can begin to grow this Celebrate Recovery program. I just want to read you some of the things it says in Celebrate Recovery. Number 1, the road to recovery is not meant to be traveled alone. There are 3 relationships that are important to persons going through recovery. Number 1, a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Number 2, a relationship with a recovery group. And number 3, a relationship with a sponsor or accountability partner. It is so important for people who are going through times of difficulty and challenge, who are trying to get their feet back in the right direction, to have someone who will stand beside them and encourage them. A sponsor is an important part of the Celebrate Recovery program because it's biblical. And by the way, they quote right here the verse from Ecclesiastes chapter 4. 2 are better than 1 because together they can work more efficiently. If one of them falls down, the other can be there to help them up. There are 4 key elements to the success of any recovery program. Number 1, a person in recovery has to be honest with himself. Number 2, a person has to be faithful in attendance to their recovery group. Number 3, a person has to maintain a sense of spiritual direction through prayer, meditation, and study of the Bible. And number 4, a person has to get involved in some act of service in order to engage themselves and not just be sitting around twiddling their thumbs. But having a sponsor is a very important part of Celebrate Recovery. Listen now, if you will, to these 8 qualities of a person who could potentially be a sponsor. And while this applies to sponsorship and Celebrate Recovery, I want to say right now before I read them, it also applies to any kind of friendship. Number 1, if you would be a good sponsor, your walk must match your talk. Number 2, are you growing in your relationship with God? Number 3, do you have a desire to help others who are on their road to recovery? Number 4, do you have genuine compassion, care, and hope for a person going through recovery as opposed to simply feeling sorry for them or having pity on them? My brother and his wife, quite a few years ago, went through a really rocky time, and they separated. And not long after they separated, my brother was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. My ex-sister-in-law decided to come back. My mom said to her, "Don't come back if you only feel sorry for Ed, because he won't need your pity. He'll need your support." Number 5, are you a good listener? Number 6, are you willing to confront any denial or procrastination in your friend and speak the truth? 7, are you a person who can offer suggestions without being judgmental? Can you help a person, a friend, see that there might be some other options as they struggle with this issue they're going through in their life? And lastly, are you willing to be vulnerable and share your own struggles with others? Let me tell you something. The key to a friendship that binds people together stronger than any cord is to be open and honest, to be real.